All right, so we have this 9-inch KISS quad. It's about 2.2 kilograms. So let's see how she flies on the PIDs and settings that I received it on.
Engines armed.
Ooh, a little bit of bounce back. All right. Looks like throttle pumps are not too bad, but bounce back definitely on pitch and roll. We got to work on that. See how prop wash looks. Wash is pretty good. Let's do smooth forward flight. No sticks. Looks okay on the FPV feed. See how it looks in the HD when we get there. See how yaw looks. No weird behavior on yaw. It's hard to see the responsiveness since we don't have logging. I don't see any bounce back or anything. Yaw looks pretty good. I don't see any bounce back. Let's do throttle chops. A little bit of bobble, but not too bad. A little bit of shake on the downhill. So. Yeah, this is a cinema whoop, it's a rig that's going to carry a pretty expensive camera. So let's see the smooth forward flight on it. Do that again. Wash is pretty darn good. A little bit of shake there. Getting down on my voltage here. Ooh, a little sloppy. Doesn't help that I have gnats all over me. Alright, let's bring it back before these gnats make me crash.
Engines disarmed.
All right, so not too bad. The bobble, obviously the PDD balance is off, or it's I term. We'll take a look at that in KISS here and see if we can make this even better. Okay, so for this next part, what we did is set the I terms really low. We didn't turn the I terms off because we're going to do a full flight on it, but I wanted the I gains to be super weak so that it wouldn't give me any I term induced bounce back. Now in Betaflight, you can turn on I-term relax, so we set that variable to 10. That kind of locks out the I-term. You don't have to worry about I-term induced bounce back. But for other flight firmwares where you don't have I-term relax, this is the trick to get rid of the I-term, is you just make it super weak so that it doesn't really have an influence. After doing some flips and rolls in the standard tuning practices and techniques, I came to find that the proper PDD balance is around a 2.75 to a 20 on KISS. Now, all the fundamentals and principles are the same as in Betaflight. It's just the gain strengths are different because the multipliers in the background are different than Betaflight, but the principles are the same. It's a PID controller, just like Betaflight's PID controller. So this is what we end up with. So let's take a look at the flight. So unfortunately on this one, my neck cam thing didn't record, so I'll just give you a little desktop preview. The biggest thing here I want you to look at, now it's going to be sloppy because the I term is really low, but I want you to see the snap rolls. So you can see the snap rolls and snap flips. You know, they're really locked in. We don't have that wobble, that bounce back anymore. Prop wash, you know, we basically have no I term, so yeah, the quad's moving around a whole lot. We're not going to go through the whole flight, but you can kind of get a gist of how it's being locked. And again, you can see a big wobble there. But there, that snap moves. So that shows you that the P-to-D balance is locked in at that 2.75 to the 20 on the D term. That ratio between the two is right where it needs to be for a critically damped PID controller. Throttles are pretty good. You can see it's wobbling around, of course. Again, I term is weak. That's not the point. So let's skip off this. Let's go to the next thing where we bring that I term back up and see how that looks. Okay, so on this next flight, we're going to be on these PID gains. The only thing that's different from the last flight to this is we brought up the I terms to what I believe is the defaults, the 0.052, you can see. And I'm going to save you a flight in between. There's one flight where I brought these PID gains up and started to see a lot of I term induced bounce back. And I thought, well, I'm kind of stuck at that point. But then after that flight, I remembered that in KISS, you do have this D set point weight. So the D set point weight is similar to Betaflight 3.4 and earlier, where it puts the PID controller, the D term on the PID controller, instead of the D term based on measurement, which is basically, it's reading the slope directly of the gyro signal. It makes the D term when it's at 1 or 100. It's 1 in like Clean Flight or Betaflight. In the older releases, and in KISS it's 100. It would make the D term based off of the PID error. Without getting in a lot of details, the big difference is that when D set point weight is set to 100, basically you'll get a D term kick when you enter a move. So it's almost like kind of like a feed forward in the fact that it helps the P term actually kick it into move. So it can give you a more advanced push on the quad, less latency, tracking the sticks a little bit better on sharp stick inputs. Again, very similar to feed forward. Obviously the difference here is like between D-term kick and feed forward is, well, I actually have a whole video on the differences between D-term kick and feed forward. I'll make a card to that in the upper right, so check that out if you want to know the differences between the D set point weight and feed forward and why Betaflight changed to that. But long story short, in KISS, we have the D set point weight. So this next flight is going to be that set to 100, and it can't go above 100 in KISS. So that will give us the most advanced push on the quad so that our PID error during sharp stick moves is as low as it can be. Again, we already tuned up the PD balance. I have the PD gains pushed up, then I doubled them basically from what they normally are. Usually it's like 12 or 14-ish, and I moved them up to 20, so it's almost doubled. And again, we're doing the D set point weight 100, so we're basically giving it the most push, and we have that PD balance set. So hopefully with this, we don't get any I-term induced bounce back, but let's see what we get in the flight.
Engines armed.
Ooh, you can see the oscillation. Still have D-term bounce. So the oh, that's better. There we go. That was weird. Maybe it was a wind thing. Yeah. this. Still got a bounce. It's I-turn bounce. It's nice and slow. So that's telling me that whenever you get these I-turn bounces, which I see, honestly, guys, in KISS, I see it in Flight 1 as well. So this whole, like, it's so locked to the sticks thing. Whenever you get I-turn bounce back, that means you are not tracking the set point or the sticks very well. Can't show you in logging because these don't have logs. Maybe that's for a reason. But that I-turn bounce back is definitely there, and the only way to really deal with it without blowing up your tune is to, I guess, reduce I-turn, but then you're gonna have other, like, there's no way to deal with it without having other negative ramifications. So these firmwares really need some sort of feed forward or some way to track the sticks better, and they wouldn't have such I-turn wind-up issues. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the tune is okay. It's got the wobble and the bounce back thing. You can just see, and I guess technically I could push up my PD gains. Just kind of cautious to do that without something of this size without logging. Let's check the motor temps. Yeah, so it's not hot out right now. It's right 85 degrees, or I'm sorry, maybe 78 degrees, 75. I think it's like more like 75 if I had to guess. It's pretty cool. It's in the 70s somewhere, mid 70s. I'll go mid 70s. And the motors, I can hold on to them, but they're hot. A little bit more heat on those, and I would not be able to hold on to them. So, unplug this. So, I'm really hesitant to move up the PD gain slider, so I'm kind of stuck. Anyways, let's get this on Betaflight and see what we can do there. We have a lot more tools in the toolbox, and we also have logging, so we can see a lot more detail and depth and really get this tune honed in real nice.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Okay, so I'm going to spare you the time of showing you how it looked on Betaflight defaults. However, if you do want to see that, you can join my Patreon, as I uploaded the full videos of this and some other stuff of some additional steps of this for Patreon access only. What I am going to show you here, though, is after I did some tuning, and you can see here, this is the log of what I had. I actually started to enter in some manual numbers, but if you're more into the sliders, this is kind of what I ended up with the slider tune for the second to last flight. The last flight, I deviated even more from what you really can do with the sliders. So you can see moving the PD balance up, so more D term versus P term, so it's actually inversed. You have actually more D gains than you have P gains here. Moving the PD gain slider up and then feed forward all the way to the max extent. The other thing that's consistent between both last flights is I moved the actual sliders. This doesn't have RPM filtering. The ESCs are the APD power, and I don't believe they had the firmware on them necessary to do RPM filtering. I think that's available now in the newest firmware. I'm not sure. But so we're just using the dynamic notch. And again, this is going to be a cinema rig, so it's going to, smooth forward flight's going to be pretty critical. So we wanted to use the most filtering that we can. It seems to me with the larger rigs that the attention to, getting the filtering moved up and little as filtering as possible to the nth degree isn't as critical. It's more important to have your PID gain strengths higher and don't worry about us filtering as much. I believe the reason for that, and I'm kind of just spitballing on this, is that the motors are so much bigger and the props are so much bigger that they can't react that fast anyway. So that little bit of latency in the filtering for prop wash handling is just not going to make that big of a difference, especially at the cost of lower PID gains. So it's better to apply more filtering on these larger crafts and to make sure that you can get your PID gains up higher so you can get your D terms up into the 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s. But of course you still want smooth forward flight, so you're going to need some filtering for that. Here you can see I have the gyro down to 0.5, the D-term that, and it's really just, looking at where the starting points are. I really want my gyro to start at 100, then as I go up in full throttle, it goes up to 250. D-term here, I really want it to start at 60, and as I go up in throttle, it goes up to 145. So that's how I ended up setting those. And yes, it's we usually say to set them the same, but that's just a general rule of thumb. You can deviate from that and do whatever you want. It's your quad, of course. And I'll roll right into the next one. This is the last flight. You can see the PID gains I have on that one. So I ended up moving the PD gain down, the PD balance down on the roll more than pitch. I actually moved the pitch up and set. You can see this is what was close to the gains we had before. So I ended up moving this up to 75, 75. Here was like 70, 75, and then moving the roll down. And it was getting some oscillations on, you can hear it a little bit on the second to last flight, and that was from the roll axis. Again, logging, you can see that kind of stuff, so you can tell, okay, yeah, I'm getting those little bit of oscillations that's coming from my roll axis. Let's move that down. And there's a huge weight where the camera would be. It's basically two 2600 milliamp 6S batteries, so they're really heavy. And that's obviously a heck of a lot more weight on the pitch than the roll. The roll is a lot more agile. So the PD gains would make sense to be lower there than on the pitch. They'd be a lot higher because you have so much more weight to deal with on the pitch axis. With that, let's check out the flights and see what you got.
Engines on.
That's a good locked flip roll there. It's pretty dang good. Well, I don't hit the... a little hop. It's because the motors are getting saturated. Cool off a little bit. Get some smooth forward flight stuff. That could be the feed forward.
Engines on.
Little desync there. Alright. So the step response looks pretty good. Smooth forward flight, we'll have to look at the HD. I mean, it looks fine in the FPV feed. See how it goes. Notice these ESCs desync every now and then. I don't know if it's, I don't know what we need to do on that. Do some prop wash. Pretty good. I mean, it's always going to have some prop wash.
Engines disarmed.
Well, that's not good. Well, ejected everything. Let's see, oh, and broke a prop. Broke 2 props, 3 props. Awesome. I guess that's the end of this. All right, well, that is it. My takeaways are some of the times the stuff that's added into Betaflight is there for a reason. One of the major features I use all the time is iTerm Relax. I always have it on. That way, if there's any lag in the quad following the sticks, you don't have iTerm accumulation and bounce back, things of that nature. Again, if you have a bigger quad, 6, 7, 8, 9 inch, get those filters set, get them lower, put on the RPM filter if you can, but don't worry about pushing the sliders all the way up. Keep them at 1.0 or something of that nature. And more importantly, focus on your PID gains and getting your PID strengths up. Getting them up above 40, 50 on your D term here specifically. And, obviously you're pulling your P term along with the ride, having figured out your PD balance prior to that, and then push up your PD gain slider so that you're getting that PID strength up to where it needs to be. So that's the intent of this slider down here. So after you figure out your PD balance, which is the balance between these gains and your proportional gains, you have that set, and then you can start to move up your PD gain slider, which moves the P and D term gains up together, keeping the balance that you had set here. So as I move this up, you can see that balance is maintained between the 2 gain strengths there. A lot of the tuning, getting the sense of as I'm flying it, I'm taking a look at the HD, but there's nothing really a substitute for checking out logs to see if it's one axis over another, or to really get a sense of your motor noise to know if those motor temps are just because you're working the motors a lot, or you have a vibration issue that you really need to address. Without logging, it's very difficult to tell the difference between those two. So that's why I really appreciate that feature and that depth that's within Betaflight that some of the closed source firmwares just don't have anymore. But with that, we have choices. Thanks everybody, and I hope this helped.